You know that Keeley Companies is all about fostering the world-class culture through their incredible cultural pillars. Well, it was time to add a seventh cultural pillar, Keeley Green. Guided by the mission to raise the sustainability standards by which they design, build, operate, and live, Keeley Green is dedicated to using a holistic approach to leave a positive impact on our environment, create a future that is sustainable for generations to come. In the words of Rusty Keeley, we are just getting started. You can learn more about that just getting started mentality and all the work they do by visiting my friends at Keeley Companies online at KeeleyCompanies.com.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the two-time national best-selling author of On Fire and In Awe. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, the host of the Live Inspired podcast, and he's the real-life inspiration behind the major motion picture Soul on Fire. Each week, John interviews extraordinary individuals about their life stories so you can more fully live your life story. Here's your host, John O'Leary.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. Our guest today's name is Kathryn Nicolai. It's a name you may recognize because she's the creator and the host of the beloved podcast, Nothing Much Happens, where her soothing bedtime stories help millions of adults quiet their minds and find some restful sleep. She's a former yoga instructor and a lifelong storyteller. She's also transformed her childhood practice of creating stories before bed into books, audiobooks, and a comforting community for people seeking peace in a noisy world. Today, Kathryn joins me to share how storytelling began for her as a sanctuary during her childhood in Flint, Michigan, why the ordinary moments of life are often the most meaningful, and how rest can help us reconnect with our lives. We'll discuss the friends whose final words inspired Kathryn to pursue her dream, the healing power of feeling safe and seen, and her latest book, On the Street Where You Live. My friends, if your life has felt a little loud lately, if you need a little permission to slow down lately, this conversation might be exactly for you right now. You will leave encouraged to find joy in the ordinary and to give yourself the rest you need to elevate your life and those you serve. So family, get ready for it. My friend, now yours, her name, Kathryn Nicolai. Kathryn, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thanks so much for having me, John. I'm really excited to be here.
It is an honor. As I told you before I hit record, our office was fired up when they found out that we'd booked you. They are followers, they're listeners. You help rock them to sleep, which our listeners will have no idea what I'm talking about. But I think as we go farther into the conversation, they'll know exactly not only why my team likes you, but why our listeners are going to love you. So here's my very first question. If you and I were to bump into each other at a coffee shop, maybe, or a tea shop, and I said, Kathryn, what do you do? How do you respond to that?
That is an interesting question because I think I could say I'm a writer or I'm a podcaster. I sometimes say that I am an architect of cozy. My my life is built around designing soft spaces for people to settle into. I feel a little bit like I am a catcher in the rye. As people fall through, I catch them. I do that with my voice and with my writing. I tell bedtime stories for grown-ups.
What a gig, man. I can't believe that people actually get paid to
Right.
tell grown-ups good night stories. I
I
thought you
feel
only
so
got to do that
lucky.
when you had kids yourself, and now you get
Yeah.
to do it for kids all over the world.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where you learned that. So rather than talking about the book or the podcast or the tea you love to drink or whatever else it might be today, let's go
Yeah.
back in time a little bit, a couple years, growing up in Michigan.
hmm
What were you like as a little kid?
I was a kid with a huge imagination. I was a kid who was addicted to stories from the moment I first experienced them. I grew up in the 80s in Flint, Michigan, and a lot of people are familiar with Flint maybe now because of the Flint water crisis, but Flint was always a very challenging place to live. For many years, it was the murder capital of America. It was a
Yeah.
place where we experienced incredibly high rates of poverty. But I'm very proud to be from Flint. And I think what it built in me is a feeling of no one's coming to save you. So if you would like something to exist, you need to create it.
Mm,
and also a really strong feeling of community and like a stone soup sort of attitude that we're going to have to lean on each other to get to the next day because that was
right.
our lives. So I think one of my first memories as like a 3 or 4 year old was telling myself bedtime stories, and probably a little bit of an adaptation of being aware that there wasn't a ton of safety in the world I was in and needing to build it for myself. So I started telling myself bedtime stories at 3 or 4, and I never stopped. And that kind of meant that I had this modern superpower, which is I can sleep.
Uh,
I can fall asleep and I can return to sleep if I wake in the middle of the night. So then I just started to take that. I spent 20 years as a meditation and yoga teacher. I would listen to people every day talk to me about their insomnia and their anxiety. And I kept thinking, I know how to do this. How do I get
yeah.
this from me to you? And then I realized it was a podcast, and that was 8 years and 200 million downloads ago.
So one of my questions was going to be, where did you first learn the passion for stories and who shared it with you? I'm hearing you say, John, I told myself the stories. I created the world I wanted to live in. Were there others in that house as a 3-year-old that were either reading you stories, telling you stories, or they weren't?
No, for sure. We were a reading family. I remember the first book that I was able to read by myself and to get to the end of chapter one by myself and the achievement of that. And I've never not read my whole life. My parents are readers. I went to a school that really reinforced readers. I watched Reading Rainbow every day. And I'm lucky enough to get to work with LeVar Burton myself now and
Wow.
to be able to say to him, LeVar, when you said you can go anywhere, I believed you, man. So there was this strong influence of storytelling around me. I started youth theater as a kid, and I just fell in love with the capacity to create atmosphere and to take people to another place. So I've never given that up.
Wow. So I had a board meeting early today, and it was at a library. And I
Mm.
hadn't been in a library in a little while, and this happened to be the one that I grew up in. So
Mm.
down the street from my mom and dad's house was this beautiful library, which has become far more beautiful apparently
Mhm.
since I last visited. It was awesome to go back into this place that was the space of my youth and research and reading and imagining what was possible in my life. And here it is on the day where you and I are meeting to have that same experience. It blew me away as I walked in and again as I ran out to make
Yeah.
sure I hit this appointment on time. So
Libraries are portals. I feel like the feeling of potential in a library to look down the stack and see thousands of stories, that to me is never not going to be absolutely thrilling.
and yet, unless you're a librarian or you have this rare chance to be an author, it seems like a difficult way to make a living.
Oh, yeah.
So, as a little girl fascinated by theater and arts and space and story, what were you hoping to do as you got older?
I had definitely a feeling around 7 or 8 years old that I wanted to be a writer. But I think, as happens to a lot of people, as you grow up, you start to ironically, tell a story about what you are and aren't, what
Hmm.
you can and can't do. And sometimes you really internalize that and really believe it. So I started to really believe that I was not a creative person, that I was creative adjacent. All my friends were actors and musicians and artists and writers, and my brother's a poet, and everybody that we knew and went to school with, and I was like, I wish I had this thing, but apparently I don't. So, I worked, although being a yoga teacher in itself was a lot of creativity, but I didn't recognize that. And so I sort of adapted into another version of myself. And then I had this really big moment in my life. My dear friend, Renee Heitman, that I went through yoga training with, and we were best friends in our 20s and sort of came up together. In her late 20s, was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she passed away a few years later. And she called me about a week before she died. She knew she was dying. And she said, Kathryn, you have to make your dreams come true.
Hmm.
And I went, yeah, I know, babe. And she was like, no, 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 no. Don't blow me off. This is serious. I'm not going to get to make my dreams come true. And you owe me this. And I took it as a very serious mandate. And first I thought, I have no idea what my dreams are. I'm just
Yeah.
getting through day to day. I haven't even given this thought. But I made space to figure it out. And I went back to that 8 year old self who really desperately wanted to be a writer. And I started to make small steps day by day to push myself in that direction. And on the days when I couldn't do it for myself or didn't feel confident myself, I could always do it for Renee. And that still remains true. So I feel like her gift to me and the gift for those of us who lose people too early
Yeah.
might be this, that we owe them to live our lives fully and with intention and to take risks and to put ourselves out there because those are the things they don't get to do. And it has turned my life into this silly, ridiculous fairy tale where I get to tell bedtime stories for grown-ups.
So I'm going to go back in time and then we'll talk more
hmm
about Renee. But you said, John, my brother was a poet. My
hmm
parents are creatives. I was creative adjacent. It was all around me, but just unfortunately not within me.
hmm
And yet clearly it's your DNA.
Yeah.
So broadly speaking, why do you think we are the last ones to recognize the beauty within ourselves? Why do we miss what everybody else sees so clearly in us?
Man, that's the question, right? It's so clear to other people, our capacity. Sometimes I feel like there's no upper limit to the amount that we're willing to discount ourselves. And that's a deeply ingrained response. I'm going to bet that that is true on whatever continent you're on and whatever century it is. There is probably just some element of self-doubt that comes with most people. And I feel like it's something that we have to model for each other, and why it's so important that we're having conversations like this to model to other people those stories you tell yourself. They might not be true. There is so much more potential and so many doors in yourself that you haven't opened, no matter your age.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly why we fall into that place, but I feel like most of us are going to need a push out of it.
You also mentioned, John, as Renee challenged me, I made space
hmm
to figure out who I was, who I wasn't, what the story I'd been telling myself had been, and what it ought to be going forward. Talk about making space. I think a lot of our listeners and viewers may not even know what you're talking about. What does it mean to make space?
Yeah. At the time, I felt I owned a yoga studio. I taught 5 or 6 days a week. I was running a small business in a small town and trying to make payroll, and being a married person and doing all the chores of being a householder. And I felt like I didn't have sort of the bandwidth mentally, the time in the day, and probably the space to feel vulnerable,
Hmm.
to actually dig in and have a real honest look at what I wanted and what it would take to get me there. So I feel like I actually had to carve out time to sit down with a journal or sit down with a notebook or talk to myself in the car and say, like, what would light your fire? What do you care about when other things are stripped away? What, even if it never paid you a dollar, would you keep coming back to because
Oh,
it's part of who you are? And when I,
gosh, by the way, these are such good questions. I hope, my friends, you're not listening to this podcast tonight as you go to sleep. But I hope it's on the front side of your day. You got a coffee or tea on the left side and a pen in your right hand or left
right?
hand. Because these are questions you were probably asked when you were in third grade and you were dreaming big, and then we got busy.
Right. And I feel like, these are things as adults that we need to be thinking about and talking about. I feel like a lot of people have this moment as they get a little older where they go, what's the purpose here? Am I just a machine that does chores? I feel like it. Is there more to me? And where does that come from? And I feel like a lot of times they're just stones we have to have the guts to turn over.
You were turning them over probably before you even recognized fully you were. So you were drawn into yoga and into
hmm
meditation. What was the impetus behind that?
Yeah, from the first time I practiced it, I just felt so immediately at home with it. It resonated so much with me. I have some brain differences that make me sort of naturally quite present. I have aphantasia, which means I can't visualize anything, but I also I don't have an internal monologue. I don't experience any senses in my imagination. So it is very dark and very quiet up here.
So this is a real, I've not heard of it before.
It
This is a real
is.
thing.
Yeah, it's a brain difference that occurs in about 1 or 2% of the population. And it's called aphantasia, and that usually refers to imagery that we don't have an inner eye. We can't visualize anything. When other people would say, imagine with your inner eye, I never thought y'all were being literal. That people could actually visualize stuff. So I don't have that. and it affects my memory a bit because a lot of memory is coded visually.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm such the person to be doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm so naturally present because it's kind of all that I have. And I spent 20 years training myself to pay attention to the small details of the world around me, the ordinary magic that is like popping in and out of existence every time you turn your head. So I feel like all of that dialed me in to be the person who could tell you a bedtime story about a new leaf on your fern and what it feels like to watch that unfold.
Let's talk about that new leaf on
Okay.
that fern and what it means to watch that unfold as you fall asleep. It's such a radical idea for a podcast because,
Yeah.
and I hope you take this as the praise that it is. It's so ordinary and so boring.
Right.
Like none of it makes sense, and yet it's 200 million downloads later. Something's
Right.
working here. So, what was the origin story of the podcast?
Yeah. One, because I had a tried and true method myself. I knew what the stories were that would quiet my adult brain, the places I would take my mind at night to feel settled. I often felt like I needed a bridge to go from the world I lived in to a place where I could find rest. I needed less sensory input. I needed sort of a calming, soothing place to land. I also knew as a yoga teacher that, being present moment to moment with what's happening around us can be a really calming, but also energizing is the wrong word because I want them to fall asleep, but it's engaging.
Mm,
And I often think about there's a line from a Mary Oliver poem that I took like as a job description. And she says, pay attention, be amazed, tell about it. And I
it's
was like,
good.
oh, that's my job. I'm going to pay attention to the world. I'm going to be amazed by the small things that occur moment to moment that we're often too busy to really dial into. And then I'm going to tell people about it in a way that can also let them be engaged enough so that their mind doesn't spiral, but soothed enough that they fall asleep. And, I think I figured it out. I think I cracked the case.
Be amazed is almost the opposite, though, of how you titled your podcast. It's
That's
it's
true.
it's a hilarious title. What is the title of your podcast?
It's called Nothing Much Happens. And I want to tell people right away, hey, nothing's happening. There's nothing you need to stay on top of. And in the very first minute or two, I let them know I'm going to tell the story twice and I'm going to go a little slower the second time through. And that immediately gives you, the listener, permission to soften and let go because it's coming around again.
Mm,
So there's nothing to stay on top of. But there's also this feeling of predictability, a lower cognitive load. It's soothing. It's why we watch the same TV shows over and over for comfort. It allows us to know what's coming. And there's no car chases. There's no cliffhangers. The stories have very soft arcs, but it's really just about these small everyday moments, but how soft and lovely they can be when you lean into their details. That's
mm.
enough for most adults to feel really captivated. And kids too. I used to say bedtime stories for adults, and then so many kids wrote in and said, "Excuse me, I'm 9 years old." And I said, oh, "I'm sorry. Bedtime stories for everyone."
So, someone who is reading bedtime stories is utilizing their voice to do so.
Hmm.
And as a man who does a fair amount of speaking and podcasting, oddly enough, I never liked the sound of my voice. I
Really?
don't love listening to it. I don't love watching back video, both either
Mm.
for the image or for the actual sound. So, you, my friend, do you enjoy the sound of your voice? And did you always enjoy the sound of your voice?
Yeah, I think guilty. I do. And I think spending those 10,000 hours in the yoga studio, it trained me so much as I would watch people's faces and notice the rhythm of their breath to feel like an instant feedback of how my voice could land
Yeah.
and even my word choice. So I'm very careful with my word choice in the podcast, just as I was as a yoga teacher, that I'm going to always pick words, patterns of speech that you don't get snagged on, that just allow you to slip through. So I do feel, and I feel like this is something I worked for. It wasn't always true, but I do feel quite comfortable now with experiencing my own image. And just side note, I think it's lovely to listen to your voice, John. And I'm kind of an expert at this, so I think you should take my take my
Please,
opinion.
please. Flattery will get you nowhere with me. I'm still going to grill you by the end of this thing. All right. So I have embraced finally the sound of my own voice, but it
Hmm.
it did take a while to get there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about impact.
Mm.
When we launch things, sometimes we launch things because it's just a hobby we love. We do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
And other times people launch podcasts and efforts because they want to change the world. They want to increase top line revenue or bottom line profitability. It seems to me like you would have done this thing if only your yoga studio paid attention.
For
That would
sure.
have been enough. When did you begin to recognize, oh my gosh, it's outgrowing Flint, and we've just left
Yes.
Michigan, and now it's growing beyond the U.S. When did the ripple effect of how big this would get begin to resonate with you?
It happened kind of fast. And I was really shocked because I thought I was doing something so niche. I thought I'm doing something just for a few people. And if I'm really lucky, those few people will find me. But probably within a month or two, we went from 20 downloads a day to 60 downloads a day to, whoa, 2,000 downloads a day. Wait a minute, 5,000 downloads a day. And then, Apple featured us in like a new and notable position. And, it just gained so much momentum so quickly because it turns out that it's not niche, it's so universal. Almost everybody will experience insomnia or anxiety, some issue with their sleep at some point in their life. And for a lot of
Mm.
people, it's a chronic issue. So a lot of people, even though sleep podcasts weren't really a thing at the time, it clicked for a lot of people. And they were like, oh, this is a thing that could work for me. It did. And then they told 5 people about it.
What do you think most people, not your listeners or not my listeners, but what do you think most listeners, what most adults do before they go to bed? What's their routine like?
I
And
think for
because
most,
yours
go
is
ahead.
very different. So tell me what you think theirs is.
I know that most of us have been hacked by our phones. And I want to say that's not your fault if you feel hacked by your phone. There's billion-dollar companies that put a lot of technology into figuring out how to keep you swiping. So, first I want to say, like, if that's you, don't double down with shame on yourself. We're all doing our best, and these are really difficult days. But I think a lot of people are probably stuck doom scrolling hour after hour. Um, and it
If that's
becomes
true, why might that not be beneficial for sleep?
well, so many reasons. First, that light is going to keep stimulating the part of your brain that suppresses melatonin, which is a natural hormone that tells you when to turn the lights off. So, the light is shining right in your face with the most terrible news you've ever read. It's pretty hard to go from that. Like I said, you need that bridge to carry you to someplace soft. And my philosophy is always, if we can make the things that are good for you pleasant and enjoyable, it is going to be so much easier for you to do them day in and day out.
Yes.
So let's make the habits around your sleep hygiene super enjoyable and you look forward to them. Nobody looks forward to doom scrolling, but we're stuck in this thing with it. So what can we find that like trumps that feeling where you go, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get into my softest pajamas. I'm going to read the book that it's a guilty pleasure. I've heard it a million times, or I'm going to, you know, spray my pillow with lavender and I'm going to turn on this soft music and I'm going to light the, lights that are soft orange glow. It's okay if some of that stuff feels cheesy. You can be cheesy in your own head. Nobody can see. And and take care of yourself in the way that you would naturally take care of someone else. You deserve that kind of care.
So in my audience, 60% are female, 40% are male. 60% of the folks listening just wrote down like, yes, yes, yes. And 40% are like, can't do that, man. I'm a guy's guy, machismo. Explain to those 40% and the one asking the question why it's okay for us guys to also spray a little lavender on our pillow and go to a cozy place.
Yeah, because as strong men, you're not afraid to take care of yourself. You're over the part of masculinity that says killing yourself is peak. You're smart enough as these wise men that you are growing into to realize that to be the strong person you want to be for the people in your life, you're going to need to take care of yourself. I had this moment with my dad. My dad has MS, where he shifted a lot of stuff in his life to live longer and better and take care of himself more. My dad had told me he loved me a million times, but those are words. And when he cared for himself, he showed me. He showed my mom,
Wow.
he showed my brother, he showed the people in his life. I love you, and here's how I'm showing it. I'm taking care of myself. And that is something that has stayed with me, not only as something he did for me, but as a model of who to be myself. So, for those guys who are listening right now, who are burning the candle at both ends and feel like there's some kind of braggadocio in that, I
Yeah.
just want to say the people in your life will know who you are as a man by the choices you make to care for yourself. So have a little lavender and go night night.
Tell me and our listeners what your dad did to show you that he loved you as he took
Mm.
care of himself. So what are some specific examples of what he did behaviorally?
Yeah, he did become a vegan, and I was a vegan who flipped everybody in my family. But, he found that eating plant-based kept his MS in a base play. It didn't increase for about 15 years. He was in what they call remission. It doesn't go backwards, but it stopped moving forward. And he experienced less problems with his balance. And he started coming to yoga 3 days a week. And he would drive almost 50 minutes to come from his house to my yoga studio. And that meant so much to me to have my
Right.
dad in practice with me day after day. And he was very much a guy's guy who, was an athlete and a tough guy and had a really difficult job. But he's the kind of tough that isn't intimidated to do what it takes. So he's a hero to me, and he's still doing great.
I'm glad. Your stories are not about dad climbing mountains. It's about a fire gently burning. It's about a leaf slowly falling.
Hmm.
It's about a cup of tea or a cup of soup. It's very ordinary stuff.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is that the ordinary moments are not only so important, but so cozy inducing in our lives?
Yeah.
Why is it so important to be ordinary in the way you deliver these stories?
I love this question. Thank you, John. I'm ready to tell you the answer. So much of our lives is lived in small moments. We'll have like a handful of really big moments when you get married or have a baby or fall in love or graduate, some big success. You're going to have a half dozen to a dozen really peak moments, huge moments.
Right.
The rest of your life is these very small, simple moments. So if we can awaken to the small moments, that's a different life at the end of the day. That is a much richer, fuller life where you are more connected to what's happening as it's happening, less in the past, less in the future,
Right.
more present with yourself and the people you're in relationships and community with. And so to me, that's actually huge, but it is achieved through the ordinary.
Mm, it's beautiful.
Thanks.
Uh, I write in On Fire about inflection points. And it's this idea that a can of gasoline blowing up is an inflection point.
Hmm.
Coming out of the hospital is an inflection point. But pouring a cup of tea with a friend is an inflection point. And so it's this reminder that this stuff we think is the important, as we race toward it or away from it, we may be missing the most important thing that we are running right past. So we
That's
are in
so,
step on that one.
yeah, so well said.
You, as you look at the world that is so sleep deprived, do you think the sleep deprivation is affecting us more negatively physically or emotionally? So are we wiped out
Gosh.
physically and our body aches because we're not sleeping well, or is it emotionally and spiritually that it's it's suffocating our lives?
Yeah, I feel like we are tapped out on both ends. We do know that sleep is foundational to all kinds of our health, from physical to mental to emotional health. And sometimes we've often correlated depression might lead to insomnia. Now there's studies that show actually not getting enough sleep is going to directly lead to depression. But we also know it impacts your risk for heart disease, your heart rate, your body's ability to heal and
Right.
recover. So it's kind of all over the place. And as just a human in the world today, you're probably already feeling pretty tapped out and exhausted just getting from morning to night. There's so many demands on us. There's so many places to put your attention, and so much of it can be a drain. And I feel like a lot of people, even when they do sleep, they might not feel rested or recovered. And that's often because there are so many stress cycles open in their body that even when they sleep,
Mm.
it's like tabs on your computer. You've got 48 tabs open. Things are starting to freeze up. There's music coming from somewhere.
Am
You
I
can't
sharing my
tell.
screen right now? Are you looking at what I'm seeing? I haven't heard a word you've said in the last 32 minutes.
Right. So that's your nervous system. It's all this dispersed hypervigilant energy. So we have to do practices that are going to close out those tabs in order to properly come back to zero, to
Right.
have sort of a neutral base point to start with. So, and I kind of sneakily put that stuff into the stories. I always think of it like I'm putting veggies in the kids' spaghetti or what, they won't even know that it's there, but they're still going to ingest it. So, creating that level of safety. For most people, sleeplessness, it's not just a problem of I
Right.
can't sleep. It's a problem of I don't feel safe.
Mm.
So if we can create that feeling, your nervous system is going to set it down and you're going to rest.
Mm. The numbers you could be bragging about, the big download numbers and where you are on Apple's list and everything else. But I think the numbers that motivate you the most are the one and then two and then three. It's one life at a time that you're elevating. Share with us a couple stories of folks who have reached out to you that surprised you or inspired you to keep going.
I'm so fortunate that I get to do this job and then I get to know how it helps people
Right.
because I just feel so lucky that I get to be the person who is a soft landing for someone else. I mean, there are millions of people who just say, I didn't sleep and now I'm sleeping and it's a different life. And that is plenty. That's all I ever hoped for. But then I hear from people who have gone through things like they've lost a child and they never thought they would sleep through the night again. That dark place was too lonely, and that my voice could be a companion in the night, a sort of guardian to watch over them. People have told me, I just got a comment the other day that said, I was about to give up.
Mm.
And I decided not to after I listened to the story because it reminded me that my day is actually full of a lot of beautiful things. I know that my voice is sometimes the last voice someone hears in
Yeah.
hospice. People have often told me, we let it play for 3 days, the last 3 days of her life, because we all knew that they were safe places, soft places for us all to exist together. People tell me, I bring your book to memory care. My mom doesn't remember me, but she doesn't have to. We can read the stories, and it's a way for us to share an experience. So I can't believe that I get to be the person who facilitates that feeling, but
Mm.
I never am going to take it for granted. And it makes me so protective of my people. I'm very careful with the work that I do and protective because I'm aware of the effect it has.
You've been helping people sleep in one way or another for the entirety of your work, and now you're going to help people more fully wake up. Tell me about the book that you've just written.
Yeah, my new book is called On the Street Where You Live, and it's a cozy audiobook. It's healing fiction. So the concept is to sort of broaden the work I do in Nothing Much Happens and to dig a little deeper and deliver a really beautiful piece of interconnected lives over the course of 3 days. It kind of shows how you can't be human all by yourself,
Mm.
how we have to have each other to exist and live fully and support each other.
Right.
And there's this concept in trauma therapy of restorative witnessing that even if these things weren't part of your life, this relationship with your dad or this place, this experience, that just by witnessing it, you're able to heal a bit, to sort of heal by proxy.
Mm.
And so that kind of reparative work that you can do just by putting on your headphones, going for a walk and listening, I think that's brilliant. And it's something I'm so excited to bring to people.
Mm. So many of our listeners are dealing with anxiety or overwhelm, or their mind just spins, not only when they're falling asleep, but throughout the course of a day.
Yeah.
Are there any techniques or tools that you find yourself utilizing throughout the day or as you get ready for bed that just help you breathe and live in this moment that you might find effective for our listeners to tap into?
Yeah. Breathing to me is always my North Pole because it is always the thing that brings me into my body and into the present moment. And I was just thinking before we started today about a technique that I call the panic button. And we could try it together. And if you're listening, I mean, don't do this while you're driving. But these are for the moments when that mind is really spinning or the anxiety is peaking. You're going to bring your hands together in front of you, interlace your fingers, but stick your thumbs up. We're going to take a big breath in through the nose, and then you're going to actually plug your mouth with your thumbs, and you're going to try to push your breath out against your thumbs, but you won't be able to breathe out. It's just going to it's going to create some vibration in your cheeks, and then you're going to take them out and exhale. Let's do it again. So breathe in, plug and push, and exhale. One more. I can already feel it. Inhale, plug and push, breathe out. Good. So that is creating pressure in your jaw and throat. It's stimulating your vagus nerve, and it also made you exhale longer than your inhale. And that's all waving at your parasympathetic nervous system and going, everything's okay.
You know, As a guy who's still trying to outgrow my adolescent concerns of not being enough, I struggle doing exercises like this. I'm not going to lie to you,
Hmm.
but I feel better after I do it. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
right there, I'm sure most of our listeners listen to you and I do this and they thought, well, that's good for them. And they probably missed the opportunity to do something that actually, in my mind, reduced the tension in my neck that I was
Me
not even
too.
sure I had been feeling
Yep.
until I no longer felt it after those two breaths.
Yep. I know. It's like when I go for my mental health walk and then I'm like, dang it, that worked.
Right.
There are these tools that we have that are free to use, sometimes only take a second, and you just got to kind of have the habit, start to dig into a regular practice because they do work.
Catherine and I have written down a bunch of your quotes that moved me. I probably won't go through all of them, but I'm going to read you back your words. You tell me what you're saying to me. You
Okay.
ready?
Mhm.
Rest is not a reward for finishing life. Rest is part of how we live it well.
Absolutely. Rest, I feel like we often feel like we have to earn it. And I want to suggest that people think about rest in the way that they think about drinking water. If you realize I'm dehydrated, I haven't had enough water today, first of all, you don't feel guilty. You don't go, well, let me see if I can get through the entire day before I have a sip. And then you don't go, well, let me just drink the littlest amount of water I can possibly drink to get by. You just recognize to be healthy and feel good, I need water. I'm going to drink it. I want people to think the same way about rest, whether it's sleep or taking breaks. Rest is there to help you live more fully when you're awake.
Mm. This is not one of your quotes. I'm just curious as I'm hearing you like incredibly respond to every question I ask. Are you media trained? Is this just years of doing this? Or have you always just been able to respond brilliantly to the questions asked of you?
I am not media trained. I think that this is just 20 years of yoga plus 8 years of this. I have spent so much time very intentionally thinking about the
Right.
mechanisms behind the work that I do that I've just been waiting for someone like you, John, to ask me.
Well, let's keep going then. I'm not done. The ordinary moments we rush past are often the very places peace is waiting for us.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like we're often saying, let me get through this week and then I can relax. Let me get to the end of this project and then I'm going to feel like satisfied, or let me arrive at this point in my life. Those moments never come. You actually passed them. They arrive in the small moments that just being present supplies.
Mm.
I feel like there's so much to be gained just by living in our senses fully. And we've often lost sight of that because we're sort of focused on something that in the end is not going to deliver what being here now does.
Coziness is not about blankets and candles. It's about finally feeling safe enough to exhale.
For sure. I feel like coziness is an internal construction. It is a message of safety that you have sent so lovingly to yourself that you could actually be anywhere. You
Mm.
could be in a difficult moment. You could be sitting in your car in traffic, but having built a place inside of yourself of such full safety that you can reside in that place and let the world spin around you. Coziness is the eye of the storm.
Final quote, Catherine, is sometimes healing begins the moment we stop trying to outrun ourselves.
Absolutely. Is there anything we want to do more than outrun ourselves? Anything that feels, more nerve-wracking than sitting in our own fire? I used to say this as a yoga teacher that all the stuff you're looking for, uh, labeled emotionally healthy adult, it's through that door that says, that scares me. So I think there's a moment there where you have to stop swinging to the next branch.
All right.
Just be here in this one and be honest about what's coming up, how it feels, and can you sit with that without adding to it?
So the final question before we wrap up with the Live Inspired 7 is a lot of the folks listening to our voice listen for productivity purposes
Mm,
to get more done in their family life, in their professional journey, in their spiritual path, whatever it might be. We want to grow and swing quickly to the next branch
yeah.
and elevate. And yet what you're saying in that last response is like, you got to party on this branch for a moment. Help me better understand how to be comfortable in my skin today. to
Yeah.
stop advancing, to stop racing, to stop pursuing? How do I
Yeah.
relax and recognize that this moment's enough? This is all we have.
Yeah. This is something that takes a lot of practice. I wish that it was a flip or a switch you could flip in your mindset, but it is something that you literally have to practice. So maybe set a couple of moments through the day, and they're really mundane ones. The next time you get in the shower, or the next time you get into your car, the next time you sit down to have a meal, take 5 breaths. Just be still. Notice how difficult it is to not reach for your fork or not turn on the car, but to just be still and notice the sensations in your body. Let yourself sort of come out of the haze of rushing and see the fullness of the moment. And know that this is a cumulative practice that will create more as it goes, that awareness begets more. And
Hmm.
suddenly you start to see the value in not rushing and the things you'd been rushing past. And it allows you to pivot and stay.
Hmm. Where can people learn more about this pivot? Where can we learn more about it? Hearing your stories, reading your book, and being inspired by your journey.
Yeah. And it made me think all that learning to stay has given me 3 podcasts, 2 books, so many
Wait,
other
take your own
projects.
advice, woman.
Yeah. Well, but I am saying like it's made me productive. Like learning to be in the moment has led me to be super productive. So, I feel like it's a different approach, but if that's something you're interested in, you might just be going the wrong way to get there. Go to nothingmuchhappens.com. That's where you can find links to everything. I've got Nothing Much Happens, which is the bedtime story show. We have a daytime show. So if you're feeling anxious during the day, but you don't want me to knock you out, it's called Stories from the Village of Nothing Much. I have a 10-minute meditation show, hundreds of episodes. It's completely free. It's called First This. My second book is called On the Street Where You Live. You can get it anywhere that you get audiobooks. It'll be out this summer. And just follow me, on Instagram and stuff, because there's a lot of cool projects that I haven't even told you about yet.
Kathryn Nicolai, we have 7 questions we ask all of our expert leaders to respond to. So they're called the Live Inspired 7. I know you are extraordinarily well read, so this first one might be the most difficult one you have to answer, but here we go. What's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
Wherever You Go, There You Are by John Kabat-Zinn. It's a book about being in the moment, taking this moment with you, how you can't outrun yourself.
Hmm. What's one positive characteristic or one beautiful trait that you possessed as a little girl growing up in Michigan, but wish you exhibited more brilliantly today?
Gosh, I'm so brilliant today. I don't know what I could call on. I've always had a huge imagination. I've always been naturally optimistic. I'm no longer as naturally blonde as I was when I was 7. But that's honestly all I could think of. I have matured into a person that little girl only dreamed of.
That's awesome. If your home caught fire and all living things and people are out, but you have an opportunity of running back in and grabbing one physical item, what would you grab?
I have the key that opened the apartment that I used to live in when I was a foreign exchange student in Italy when I was 16 years old. And that year of learning to stand on my own 2 feet in another country and speak another language and stand up for myself built so much into me. That is a pivot point for sure. And I have that key. I wore it around my neck at my wedding. I would go get that.
3B. So I usually don't ask interim questions, but I did not know you went over to Italy when you were
Yeah.
16. That
Yeah.
very young, man. So you were on your own at age 16.
I was. I mean, I lived with a host family, but this was before we even had cell phones.
Right.
And, I lived there for a year. I didn't speak any Italian when I left. I still speak it, and I'm still super close with my host family.
If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous Italian day and have a long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who would you like to be seated next to?
Probably my grandfather. He was such an optimistic man. And even though he lived to be 96, I feel like I did not get enough time and I didn't ask him enough questions. He was a
Hmm.
lovely example of masculinity, of being protective, of being wise, and incredibly patient. I'd love to see
Hmm.
Edward more again.
What's the best advice grandpa, parents, spouse, teacher, anyone else ever gave you? So the best advice you've ever received, Kathryn, is
Mhm. When in doubt, do the thing you were going to do first. If you are an overthinker and you had a gut instinct that was, I'm going to go here and do this, and then you retraced it 17 times and ran a million possibilities. When in doubt, do what you were going to do first. I have a real strong gut instinct. I know not everybody does, but I do. I should trust it. And I'm glad somebody helped me see that.
Mm. What advice would you give yourself at age 20?
Stop waiting to feel ready. I kept waiting for there to be some moment where I was like going to be crowned as, okay, you're allowed now to go pursue the thing. But there's nothing that can happen to you that is scarier than spending your life being afraid that something might happen to you. And I was spending my life like that. So I would tell young Kathryn, go forth, begin to
Mm.
write.
Kathryn Nicolai, it has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like yours to read?
She helped me feel safe.
Kathryn Nicolai, we are grateful that you have helped us during this hour feel safe. We're grateful that you've helped 200 million friends around the world feel safe. And we're grateful that you eventually listened to the advice you should have received at age 20. You are ready. Go forth. So thank you for inspiring us to live in this moment, but ultimately to wake up, to wipe our eyes, and to go forth.
Thank you so much, John. This has been brilliant. I really love having this conversation with you to speak to somebody who has, had similar pivot points that shifted your life and done something so inspirational with it. I'm really glad to know you and talk to you.
Well, I'm glad you're my friend, and I'm glad my friends listening in today got to hear your story and your heart. My friends, that is the story of great Kathryn Nicolai. My name is John O'Leary, and today is your day. What a gift. Live with your soul on fire. Kathryn reminds us that a meaningful life isn't built only in the big moments. It's found in the quiet ones that we oftentimes just overlook. We just miss it. Whether it's sharing a meal, noticing the change in seasons, or simply allowing ourselves to rest, slowing down helps us reconnect with what matters most. I'm glad you slowed down with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, I know you'll love the one I had a couple years ago with my friend Mike Viking. He's the founder and CEO of the Happiness Research Institute. Mike shares how his research reveals about the true drivers of happiness, and he introduces to the word hygge. It's a Danish practice of creating comfort, connection, and joy through life's simple pleasures. It was a fun conversation with Mike. I know you'll enjoy checking it out. You can do so way back at episode 148. Or walk on over with me right now to the website, johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. On that site, we'll have a link directly to the conversation with Mike Viking. My friends, I want to thank you, as we do every time, for your participation in this podcast. If you haven't lately liked, rated, followed our podcast, do so right now. It's a wonderful way to not only ensure these episodes show up in your feed, but that others learn about the power of this episode potentially in their lives. It's a big way to help us share this signal. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for knowing that the foundation is firm and that your best is yet to come. So for this time and until next, my name is John O'Leary. Today is your day. What a gift. Live with your soul on fire. Keeley Companies was started almost 50 years ago by the one and only Larry Keeley. What started as a small family-owned paving company in St. Louis has grown to a nationally known full-service construction, development, and restoration partner. Larry the Legend, as he is affectionately known, has been a part of this growth every step of the way and continues to provide guidance as his son, Rusty, my buddy, drives their vision and achieves results on purpose. His unwavering foundation of a family culture with a focus on people has gotten Keeley Companies to where they are today, and their journey is truly just beginning. To learn more about Larry the Legend and Keeley Companies, check them out at KeeleyCompanies.com.